File tool.
At the end of an hour, my reasonings had crystallized into this verdict. Maybe those men mean me well, maybe they mean me ill. No way to decide that. Let it go. They've got a game, or a scheme, or an experiment of some kind on hand. No way to determine what it is. Let it go. There's a bet on me. No way to find out what it is. Let it go. That disposes of the indeterminable quantities. The remainder of the matter is tangible, solid, and may be classed and labelled with certainty. If I ask the Bank of England to place this bill to the credit of the man it belongs to, they'll do it, for they know him, although I don't. But they will ask me how I came in possession of it, and if I tell the truth, they'll put me in the asylum, naturally, and a lie will land me in jail. The same result would follow if I tried to bank the bill anywhere or to borrow money on it. I have got to carry this immense burden around till those men come back, whether I want to or not. It is useless to me, as useless as a handful of ashes, and yet I must take care of it and watch over it while I beg my living. I couldn't give it away if I should try, for neither honest citizen nor highwayman would accept it or meddle with it for anything. Those brothers are safe. Even if I lose their bill or burn it, they are still safe because they can stop payment and the bank will make them whole. But meantime, I've got to do a month's suffering without wages or profit, unless I help win that bet, whatever it may be, and get that situation that I am promised. I should like to get that. Men of their sort have situations in their gift that are worth having. I got to thinking a good deal about that situation. My hopes began to rise high. Without doubt the salary would be large. It would begin in a month. After that I should be all right. Pretty soon I was feeling first-rate. By this time I was tramping the streets again. The sight of a tailor shop gave me a sharp longing to shed my rags, and to clothe myself decently once more. Could I afford it? No. I had nothing in the world but £1,000,000. So I forced myself to go on by. But soon I was drifting back again. The temptation persecuted me cruelly. I must have passed that shop back and forth 6 times during that manful struggle. At last I gave in. I had to. I asked if they had a misfit suit that had been thrown on their hands. The fellow I spoke to nodded his head towards another fellow and gave me no answer. I went to the indicated fellow, and he indicated another fellow with his head and no words. I went to him, and he said, "Tend to you presently." I waited till he was done with what he was at, then he took me into a back room and overhauled a pile of rejected suits and selected the rattiest one for me. I put it on. It didn't fit, and wasn't in any way attractive. But it was new, and I was anxious to have it, so I didn't find any fault, but said with some diffidence, "It would be an accommodation to me if you could wait some days for the money. I haven't any small change about me." The fellow worked up a most sarcastic expression of countenance, and said, "Oh, you haven't? Well, of course I didn't expect it. I'd only expect gentlemen like you to carry large change." I was nettled, and said, "My friend, you shouldn't judge a stranger always by the clothes he wears. I am quite able to pay for this suit. I simply didn't wish to put you to the trouble of changing a large note." He modified his style a little at that, and said, though still with something of an air, I didn't mean any particular harm, but as long as rebukes are going, I might say it wasn't quite your affair to jump to the conclusion that we couldn't change any note that you might happen to be carrying around. On the contrary, we can. I handed the note to him and said, "Oh, very well, I apologize." He received it with a smile, one of those large smiles which goes all around over and has folds in it, and wrinkles, and spirals, and looks like the place where you have thrown a brick in a pond. And then, in the act of his taking a glimpse of the bill, this smile froze solid, and turned yellow, and looked like those wavy, wormy spreads of lava which you find hardened on little levels on the side of Vesuvius. I never before saw a smile caught like that, and perpetuated. The man stood there holding the bill and looking like that, and the proprietor hustled up to see what was the matter, and said briskly, "Well, what's up? What's the trouble? What's wanting?" I said, "There isn't any trouble. I'm waiting for my change." "Come, get him his change, Todd. Get him his change." Todd retorted, "Get him his change. It's easy to say, sir, but look at the bill yourself." The proprietor took a look, gave a low, eloquent whistle, then made a dive for the pile of rejected clothing, and began to snatch it this way and that, talking all the time excitedly as if to himself. "Sell an eccentric millionaire such an unspeakable suit as that? Todd's a fool, a born fool, always doing something like this. Drives every millionaire away from the place, because he can't tell a millionaire from a tramp, and never could. Ah, here's the thing I'm after. Please get those things off, sir, and throw them in the fire. Do me the favour to put on this shirt and this suit. It's just the thing, the very thing. Plain, rich, modest, and just ducally nobby. Made to order for a foreign prince. You may know him, sir. His Serene Highness the Hospodar of Halifax had to leave it with us and take a mourning suit because his mother was going to die, which she didn't. But that's all right. We can't always have the things the way we... that is, the way they... There. Trousers all right? They fit you to a charm, sir. Now the waistcoat. Aha, right again. Now the coat. Lord, look at that. Now, perfect. The whole thing. I never saw such a triumph in all my experience." I expressed my satisfaction. "Quite right, sir, quite right. It'll do for a makeshift, I'm bound to say. But wait till you see what we'll get up for you on your own measure. Come, Todd, book and pen, get at it. Length of leg, 32 inches. And so on. Before I could get in a word, he had measured me, and was giving orders for dress suits, morning suits, shirts, and all sorts of things. When I got a chance, I said, "But, my dear sir, I can't give these orders unless you can wait indefinitely or change the bill." "Indefinitely? It's a weak word, sir, a weak word. Eternally, that's the word, sir. Todd, rush these things through, and send them to the gentleman's address without any waste of time. Let the minor customers wait. Set down the gentleman's address, and—" "I'm changing my quarters. I will drop in and leave the new address." "Quite right, sir, quite right. One moment, let me show you out, sir. There. Good day, sir, good day." Well, don't you see what was bound to happen? I drifted naturally into buying whatever I wanted and asking for change. Within a week I was sumptuously equipped with all needful comforts and luxuries, and was housed in an expensive private hotel in Hanover Square. I took my dinners there, but for breakfast I stuck by Harris's humble feeding-house, where I had got my first meal on my £1,000,000 bill. I was the making of Harris. The fact had gone all abroad that the foreign crank who carried £1,000,000 bills in his vest pocket was the patron saint of the place. That was enough. From being a poor, struggling little hand-to-mouth enterprise, it had become celebrated and overcrowded with customers. Harris was so grateful that he forced loans upon me and would not be denied. And so, pauper as I was, I had money to spend and was living like the rich and the great. I judged that there was going to be a crash by and by, but I was in now and must swim across or drown. You see, there was just that element of impending disaster to give a serious side, a sober side, to a state of things which would otherwise have been purely ridiculous. In the night, in the dark, the tragedy part was always to the front, and always warning, always threatening, and so I moaned and tossed, and sleep was hard to find. But in the cheerful daylight the tragedy element faded out and disappeared, and I walked on air, and was happy to giddiness, to intoxication, you may say. And it was natural, for I had become one of the notorieties of the metropolis of the world, and it turned my head not just a little, but a good deal. You could not take up a newspaper, English, Scotch, or Irish, without finding in it one or more references to the vest-pocket million-pounder and his latest doings and sayings. At first, in these mentions, I was at the bottom of the personal gossip column. Next, I was listed above the knights. Next, above the baronets. Next, above the barons, and so on, climbing steadily as my notoriety augmented, until I reached the highest altitude possible, and there I remained, taking precedence of all dukes not royal, and of all ecclesiastics except the primate of all England. But mind, this was not fame. As yet I had achieved only notoriety. Then came the climaxing stroke, the accolade, so to speak, which in a single instant transmuted the perishable dross of notoriety into the enduring gold of fame. Punch caricatured me. Yes, I was a made man now. My place was established. I might be joked about still, but reverently, not hilariously, not rudely. I could be smiled at, but not laughed at. The time for that had gone by. Punch pictured me all a-flutter with rags, dickering with a beefeater for the Tower of London. Well, you can imagine how it was with a young fellow who had never been taken notice of before, and now, all of a sudden, couldn't say a thing that wasn't taken up and repeated everywhere. Couldn't stir abroad without constantly overhearing the remark flying from lip to lip. "There he goes. That's him." Couldn't take his breakfast without a crowd to look on. Couldn't appear in an opera box without concentrating there the fire of 1,000 lorgnettes. Why, I just swam in glory all day long. That is the amount of it. You know, I even kept my old suit of rags, and every now and then appeared in them, so as to have the old pleasure of buying trifles and being insulted, and then shooting the scoffer dead with the £1,000,000 bill. But I couldn't keep that up. The illustrated papers made the outfit so familiar that when I went out in it I was at once recognized and followed by a crowd, and if I attempted to purchase, the man would offer me his whole